Get the whole story.
Okay, welcome back. You're watching Inside Politics. Thank you for staying with us. Remember, you can chime into the conversation we're having right here. Feel free to call in. We'll be opening the studio lines within the next 10 minutes or so. So do stay tuned for that. Even as we continue with the deliberations, as I hinted, this time round, we shift focus to Raila Odinga's Africa Union Commission chairperson bid. There were a couple of developments that played out last week in the form of a first-round win for the East Africa region after the Africa Union Executive Council unanimously agreed it's the turn for the East Africa region to produce candidates for the position of chairperson of the African Union Commission. Let's listen in to the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the CS for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs speaking to that matter. Listen in.
And therefore the decision that was taken was that in accordance with the alphabetical order, the East African region will now have the opportunity to offer its candidate for the chair of the African Union Commission. This was critical because it affirmed the position that had been taken earlier by the Assembly of Heads of State, that in order to bring more equity and diversity within the African Union, the rotational principle becomes very, very important.
The very first time on such an important topic as the election of the senior leadership, the Permanent Representatives Committee presented unanimous recommendations and a report adopted by all to the Executive Council.
We believe there's a strong synergy, and we are offering Africa a very credible candidate.
So we're offering Africa a very credible candidate. Politics, a day, a lot can change. Let's start with you, Ruth, on this rotational principle, because part of the proposal was a draft rule pushing for restrictions to women candidates, only arguing that positions of chairperson and deputy must be restricted to the principle of gender parity. Of course, it was shot down, so it's all clear for Raila Odinga, as it seems. You're smiling, yet gender parity was shut down.
I am smiling because sometimes some of these things can be very convenient, yet we normally set them in the rule of law, and implementation goes to zero. But what you see that one of the things that has been taken into consideration here for diversity, equity, and inclusion to be thrown out of the window is maybe for the reconciliation of this country, and that's why I'm laughing. Because as our legal person has said, for only that mention, our fuel went down 7 shillings, meaning even other cost of living went down, electricity and food and other things. So for reconciliation, I think this was for the reconciliation of this country. I was actually very pleased to see even how it did regionally when we saw the president with the president of Uganda and Honorable Raila Odinga. It looked good. However, for a day, even from a constitution perspective, as we were talking earlier, we need to see whether the issue actually, and our Frederick being very passionate on this issue, ensuring that also there is a lot of diversity and inclusion in it. The other question that I want us to ask ourselves here, even on the case of those legal issues that were being mentioned, were they there in the first place, or they were just foreseen, or were they just limitation? Or, you know, some of these positions can be, and that's why when it comes to Kenya politics, I think the issue of inclusion, collaboration, partnership, dialogue, being very diplomatic, you know, the whole issue of diplomacy, because when I look at that position going to Raila Odinga, it brings more diplomacy diplomacy and the issue of equality, even when it comes to political functions in this country. And I told you earlier, when anything that goes through political function will affect the economy in one way or the other. KRA will not collect, people will not do business, people will be frustrated, Kenyans will be unhappy. So are we also using that as an area or as a measure of raising the happiness level of Kenyan? So if that is the issue, then so be it, because when people are happy, from where I sit, economy is also growing. And but at the same time, they should see how to balance so that whatever the Prime CS has said on the issue of diversity and equity, that can also be redone from another also area to ensure that we have regional balancing in the future, especially when we look at the East African bloc, which was a major determinant.
Okay, Okango, I have to bring in local politics in this. Perhaps as you react to what has transpired in the last week, panelists last week mentioned that Azimio will be looking, if Raila Odinga goes to AUC, Azimio will be looking to fill 3 positions that will be left empty. And power abhors vacuum. We know that the position of the defunct opposition leader, he's held that for over 25 years in the country, the position of ODM leader, and now the region's kingpin. Not even, Azimio leader is the 4th one. So how do you go in terms of the succession matrix within Azimio if and when Raila assumes that position?
First of all, before I answer that, I think it is a good thing for the Eastern African region. That decision by actually it was a recommendation from the PRC, Permanent Representative Commission, to Executive Council of AU, that we should go that route.
Okay.
But if you go through the rules of procedure of AU, particularly chapter 2, sorry, if you look at rule 38 all the way to rule 42, it actually doesn't dictate the gender of the person who occupies that position. It says a woman or a man who has a track record in government, parliament, and all those things. And Raila Odinga is that man. So therefore, Raila Amolo Odinga is eminently qualified. But coming back, and we wish him the best. Coming back, Raila Amolo Odinga, I have seen people trying to inherit Raila Amolo Odinga's constituency, political constituency. They'd want to replace Raila Amolo Odinga. But we have always argued that you can never be Raila Amolo Odinga. No one can ever replace Raila Amolo Odinga, the politician, because Raila Amolo Odinga is a legend, is a titan, and you cannot replace titans. You can only chart your path so that you be who you are by following his footsteps. Today, Kenya is a democratic country, and in a democracy, there is no emperor's tool to inherit. So you cannot. But back, we are likely to see Raila Odinga in 4 spaces when he goes to AU come next year, March. In the sense that the ODM leadership will have a leader. Azimio will have a leader. What they call kingpin, particularly in the Luo Nyanza, will have their leader. And the opposition politics that we have always seen Raila Odinga play to the best of his knowledge and put the government of the day into check, will also have a leader. And therefore, those are 4 aspects that we're likely to see. But you'll never have one person that is replacing Raila in all those spaces. But as I finish, I want to say that Raila Amolo Odinga as an individual is a person with track record, particularly on Pan-African vision. And we want to say as Azimio that Raila Amolo Odinga going into AUC will give a lot of credence to this country. Honorable William Ruto knows the benefit Kenya will have should Raila Amolo Odinga claim that position in terms of networking, bringing confidence to Kenya, development in the region. And that's why the East African heads of states have agreed that they will support the candidature of Raila Amolo Odinga. So back home, even as Raila goes, we want also to see a fair playground where politicians present what they have to offer not just inheriting, but you have to demonstrate to the populace that, you know, I can fill in the gap in the absence of Raila by doing 1, 2, 3. Okay. We want to see those who say that, you know, they can bring this government into question, accountability, and all those things, but not just talk. So for Azimio, that time will come. But as it is now, we know for sure we have Martha Karua, we have Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, you have Eugene Wamalwa, but I've seen Kalonzo Musyoka has stepped in and is doing what he can to show that he can actually galvanize the opposition support and put the government of the day into check.
Okay. Your submissions on this issue.
I think, Jesse, the ascension of the former Prime Minister to the African Union chair should be looked in context. First of all, a question of qualification does not arise because he is a Pan-African, and he has always said it. Raila Odinga himself is capable to go into that office. But the minor qualifications, they are there actually. They are there. They require you should have a master's in law, you should be this and that. And because this seat is political, you can see they have been diminished. No one wants to look at them. Everyone in the 54, 55 member states is looking at that as a miniature, minor qualification when you compare to the political networking, to statesmanship of an individual, to the Pan-African a person is. You look at the history of African Union, when it was called Organization of African Union in the 60s, and the way they tried to mutate into a more stable, solid organization that is today. And this was achieved, I think, in about the year 2000, 2002. So the concern for the member states is who can come and put people together. There is a new agreement called what? Called, NAFTA. It's not NAFTA. This new trade agreement that was formed in 2019, 2020. Who is, I mean, it's all really about, trade and opening up a space for Africans to have probably a single currency, to have a trade bloc,
a bank
that can, that can energize and make Africans to have better capacities.
All right.
So who can do that? It's not a lawyer from law school, and I respect that we can actually offer. We can offer, leadership and all that.
Yeah.
But the point here is who can bring up self-governance for Africans so that we can be felt as a continent in the rest of the world. You saw Barack Obama when he came here. He mentioned when he came to Africa, he actually addressed the African heads of states on that issue.
All right.
So who can do it? And I think that could be the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, who is now already retired. Kalonzo Musyoka would have been a fit as well. But at the moment, everyone actually is unanimously agreeing that until now, East Africans have said, we will have a candidate, and that is Raila Odinga. So in terms of his capacity, no question. In terms of what he's going to do, it's all laid out there, and Raila Odinga is the best fit. I do not want to go into the local politics because these guys bring up tension that does not exist. They will say, if Raila is going, you guys now you are going to be orphans. Those are petty small children. Small
they'll be left with the mother.
The bigger picture. Okay,
the mother
and lady. Allow us to cross over to our other studios. My colleague Emmanuel Toi is set to give us the outlook of the coming week in terms of the major developments we should anticipate. To, over to you.
Well, Jesse, it's really a heated debate and discussion you're having down there. And of course, some of the key highlights are also coming from the discussions that you've had. And some of the key things, one of them is the Affordable Housing Bill 2023 will be assented into law by President William Ruto tomorrow morning. We expect that by around 8, 9 a.m., you'll be seeing some pictures on social media of the president appending that signature and making sure that that tax, 1.5% for the employer, 1.5% from the employee as well, being effected at the end of this month. Remember, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, was actually in the UK for some meeting. That's why it was not signed into law on Friday, because you know the president, he operates quickly and expeditiously, and we expect that he will be doing that tomorrow morning. So maybe you'll be touching on some of those details in your discussions, Jesse. Something else that also is going to to form a better part of the discussion this week is something to do with the NADCO report. Remember, we had a discussion with the chairperson of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, George Murugara, saying that they will be having another meeting on Wednesday. Remember, the meeting that was supposed to happen last Wednesday did not take off because there was no quorum. I don't know how they did not have quorum from both sides because this is a joint committee that should have been able to provide that quorum, and they have 45 days to do their work, finish and report back to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, who had commenced and of course asked the legislators to do that bit before the lapse of that time. Something else that is also very crucial, Jesse, is the Kisii DG impeachment. Remember, you had also given the timelines of about of the time that he's supposed to take his case or appeal to the courts, and Robert Monda is said to move to court this coming week to appeal the decision of the Senate to impeach him. This is his only recourse and only change and only chance to get back to office or go back to Kisii County to continue with this business. So those are some of the key issues that we expect to form the better part of our discussion. And maybe my good friend Okango can tell us what Raila Odinga Baba is expected to do this week, because it's now been cleared to run for office. So what are the activities and what are some of those places is set to visit? Back to you, Jesse.
That's Okango. What is Baba up to this week? Just briefly before you take a short break.
I think Baba is okay. Baba is looking for the votes, and I think the itinerary is already out.
Okay.
He'll be traveling starting next month. As you're aware, he has been away. I'm not sure if he's back now, but if he's back, probably he always has something to tell the people of Kenya.
Okay, and as members of the Fourth Estate, we'll be monitoring the latest developments to inform you in a way only we can. Allow us to take a short break, but when we come back, we open the lines, and as I assume those lines are at the bottom end of your screen, feel free to call in and SMS your views. We'll try and sample them and give us your take. Start with your name, where you're calling from, and in 2 minutes or so, give us your take on the issues we've discussed right here. Looking forward to hearing from you. We take a short break. Inside Politics, we'll be back with much more.